I'm V.
I'm Haley.
And welcome to our How to Play video for Emma Forget-Me-Not, an expansion for Good Society, a Jane Austen RPG. This expansion tells sprawling stories across many years and explores changing relationships from lost loves to broken friendships and lasting family feuds. This expansion adds a few different rules: passage of time phase, lifetime desires, and changing fortunes to the game. In this video, we'll be going through the rules changes between this expansion and the base Good Society. And we'll also be playing a two-player version of the game to illustrate many of these rules. During this, we'll be assuming that you are familiar with the general concepts and rules of Good Society. If you're not, we do have a video for that, so you can watch that first and come back here after. Collaboration in Emma Forget-Me-Not proceeds in much the same fashion as in base Good Society, but features two changes. The first that we'll be going through is the tone options. Emma is always played with a drama tone, and so the three original tones are replaced with three varieties or flavors of the drama tone. So the three tones are stormy, dark, grim, passionate, and angry. Our desires are pressing hungers. The world is hostile and unkind. Rain-soaked. Melancholy, soul-searching, and consumed with yearning. Our desires are impossible dreams that duty and circumstance will not allow. We are our own worst enemies. And sunlit, beautiful, wistful, and dreamy. Our desires are futures worth striving towards. The world is filled with possibility. Even in our darkest moments, there is hope. We'll go with rain-soaked, melancholy, soul-searching, and consumed with yearning. The second change is a new question. How long should our game span? The passage of time is an important concept in this game, and the options for this are several years, half a lifetime, and several lifetimes. So is there one that speaks to you?
Let's go with half a lifetime since it's the default for the game.
So after this, we'll be continuing on with collaboration as usual in Good Society, and just to run you through the options we've picked for that: history, we've chosen someone important, gender norms off, and hidden information none. Next, we'll move on to backstory. In this expansion, every major character has two desires: an immediate desire and a lifetime desire. A character's immediate desire determines what they want in the current moment. By contrast, a lifetime desire is a long-term wish that they hope to achieve in their lifetime. Apart from these, characters will have a character role, family background, and relationship as usual. Let's have a look at the characters we'll be playing in this two-player game and the two desires, both immediate and lifetime, that we have. My immediate desire is to marry my secret fiancé, and my lifetime desire is to find home or make one.
My immediate desire is to protect my sibling from all ill and make sure they marry who I choose. And my lifetime desire is to ensure the happiness of the one I love and wait for the opportunity to express my feelings.
So now that we know what our desires are and what we might be driving towards as characters, we will be establishing our relationship. So Haley, why don't you take us through your relationship card?
Yeah, my relationship card is siblings.
My relationship card is, the public side is acquaintances and the private side is secret fiancés. I think that would be a good one to assign to a connection for this two-player game. I will put my hand up to be your sibling because I think that sounds like fun.
Sounds good.
On top of that, we also have character roles. I am playing the tutor.
I am the socialite.
And because we are siblings, we'll be having the same family background. So we are both ill-reputed.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So from here on in, we will be creating our characters a bit more, and we'll introduce those to you once we've got a bit more fleshed out. What's our family name?
My family name is different to yours.
What was your maiden name? I guess gender norms is off. There's no reason.
Gender norms is off. There's no reason why I'd have to take my partner's name, except that I did because our family's ill-reputed. So I was like, that's why I took my partner's name, because I didn't want our name.
Yes. So Haley, why don't you take us through who you will be playing in this game?
Yes. My character is Rosemary Tilney. She is 25. She's the elder sibling. V and I decided that when Rosemary was 18 and her character was 14, our parents were convicted of embezzlement. And we lost our family fortune at that time. Our parents are still in jail. We do not talk to them. So there has been a lot in Rosemary's life that she has had to overcome, and she has done so the only way she knows how, because she is the socialite. Her temperament is gracious and sweet towards those around her, more of necessity than of natural inclination. She is a different person in private with her sister, although these days that is not an occurrence that takes place very often. Rosemary Tilney is recently married. She settled down with her childhood friend, Ander Tilney, a year ago. He grew up with her and joined the Navy and did much better for himself than anyone expected. Became a naval captain, returned with his fortune, and asked for her hand. However, unfortunately for Rosemary, she is secretly in love with my second connection, Milena Nadir, a connoisseur of gossip with a significant dowry, and was also part of the childhood trio who played together. I think Rosemary has been in love with her for a very long time, but there was really nothing she could do about the situation, and especially after her parents' embezzlement charge. For Rosemary's starting reputation tags, I chose reformed because I think she goes through life trying to apologize and compensate for her parents' mistakes. And I chose indebted because she would be nowhere if it was not for those around her who have deigned to aid her.
Well, despite my elder siblings' ability to take on a new name through marriage, I am still carrying the ill-reputed Bloom last name, so I will be playing Hester Bloom. She's 21, grew up in that kind of atmosphere of things not being settled, come through it with a thick shell, and she's just very blunt and forthright as a character. She dresses neatly in simple designs. I think she feels that there's no need to dress things up. You just need to be the person you are and say the things you need to say to get through life. Her starting reputation tags are unique, both because of her circumstances with the family and also her character, which seems at odds with what is fashionable society's expectations. And her negative tag is that she is somewhat unpredictable, which leads us to her relationship. She is currently a tutor in the household of William Colt. William has 3 daughters. The eldest, Mary, is actually Hester's secret fiancé. And the youngest, who is only 14, the age that Hester herself was when her life got upended, is the charge that Hester is currently tutoring. So to talk more about Mary, Mary is lively audacious. She is composed and in control despite her excessive wealth. Her bold confidence and trade connections cause her trouble in fashionable society. Mary is also somewhat of a forthright person in her own way, although it displays quite differently. I think with Mary, it's a more lively and bubbly forthrightness, whereas with Hester, it tends to be more severe. And I think that quality is what drew them together. But it's been 3 years now that they've been engaged with not much forward progress. At this point, I think Hester is very interested in actually proceeding to marry.
Even if the Blooms are disgraced, Rosemary believes that tutoring is beneath her sister and was beneath herself as well, even though they were both forced to do it due to their circumstances. And now that she is well settled, her endeavor is to get Hester out of that situation. In particular, she has some idea that now that Rosemary has gone some way to restoring their social situation, that there might be some future for Milena and Hester.
So let's start with the novel chapter phase. I think we're going to start the game with an event chapter. This particular Sunday evening, we will start the event chapter off with a local public dance in the town. Why don't you take us through what this public dance, what the atmosphere is?
I think this dance is held in a local hall that is used for many occasions. Emptied of furniture, very cheerfully decorated. I think it is harvest season at the moment, and the theme of the dance is sort of harvest. So ornamental farming style decorations that would be impractical if one were to attempt to farm with them, but look very good in this hall.
Why don't we start with, I assume that Rosemary, Hester, and Ander have come together. I guess I will play Ander for this game.
As we see them, they've just rounded the corner and have been hit by the sound and the noise and the cheer of the hall. And Rosemary has been apprehensive that Ander will not enjoy this event. But she really wanted to go. She takes his arm and she says, "See, my darling, it is very festive. It is very cheering."
I am glad that you and Hester will be able to enjoy yourself. I know that it's been quite a difficult week.
Oh, you must dance with me, Ander. You must.
Oof, of course, I would never leave you on the dance floor.
They have this conversation, but Rosemary already knows that they probably aren't going to dance. She isn't bothered by that because as long as Ander is content, then she's free to have the night that she desires.
Why is it again that you wanted to come? And you can see that he's coming out of these anxieties as he's about to walk in with all of this loud sounds and everything, and he's questioning it again. You probably had this conversation.
My dear, it is as important to be merry in company as it is to be sensible in company. That is how connections are formed and made. And she sort of pats him on the arm. As they're entering and turning the corner, you can already see her glancing across the room to catch sight of Milena, who is already dancing, already a few drinks in, and Anna would be able to see her instantly looking over.
Ander is a very observant person. He sort of sees that interaction and retreats in a way that he would never do on the battlefield. I'll just grab us a couple of drinks then.
Thank you, dear. And I think Ander splits off, leaving Hester and Rosemary. Rosemary takes Hester's hand and starts pulling her through the throng of people. I'm so glad you had the evening off, finally.
Hester has deigned to wear some ruffles tonight, and for the past few minutes has just been deep in contemplation about Ander and Rosemary's relationship.
It feels as if it's been an age since I've seen you.
We were both busy. And an age is not too long a time if we spent all of our youth together.
Alas, I am afraid you will not be free of me, but I assure you it is for your own good. Now come. You must be merry with me, for I know Ander will not.
You paint him as though he's a sour puss, but he's actually quite reliable. We all enjoy things in different ways.
Are you telling me off? Asks Rosemary as she wheels Hester over towards the crowd where Milena is. You think I ought to tend more closely to my husband? Am I not too to be afforded an evening off?
I think you would do well to consider his virtues.
I know his virtues well, sister. I am speaking of an evening off.
I guess I'll play Milena in this scene. I think we'll probably end up having to share this connection quite a fair bit. But I think that she is mid-twirl in her dance, but twirls right out of the dance and into the conversation. She has that sheen of sweat of someone who's been quite enjoying themselves on the dance floor. Well, we finally all decided to show up. Things are well underway. You're far behind.
You'll forgive me when you see who I've brought. This is my sister, Milena. Gosh, you wouldn't have seen her for a good 10 years.
Milena leans over in her. She's wearing a deep red dress. Little Hester Bloom all grown up, stopped following us all in your little trousers falling over every 2 seconds. Lovely to see you. And I think Hester is And where is your wonderful husband, Rosemary? He has the good Captain Tilney.
I think Rosemary laughs because I think she interprets this as Milena teasing her, because Milena knows Anna very well. They all grew up together.
Yeah.
To be sure, the pie has been well visited, and I do expect the drinks table is his next object.
Given that the wonderful Rosemary is attached, Hester, would you do me the next dance? When Milena does ask that, Hester kind of looks at Rosemary to sort of see your expression.
And Rosemary's eyes flicker from Hester to the direction of Milena as if to gesture that Hester should take advantage of every opportunity that Rosemary has so lovingly given her.
And I think Hester says, of course. And they whisk off into the dance floor. So do you want to do the Hester and the dance scene? Switch control over Milena over to you, and I will play Hester. Hester is not the best dancer, I feel. She's not bad in terms of knowing the steps, but she is somewhat clumsy about it in a 1, 2, 3, step sort of way.
Very, robotic.
When you're thinking so much about the steps, you're not enjoying the flow of the piece.
Dear Miss Bloom, you seem quite out of practice. Is this not something you need to teach your charges? I heard you were with the Colts.
1, 2, 3, 3, 2. I think you would find that you could not fault my movements. They are in time with the music and exactly as prescribed.
I could not find fault with you, Miss Bloom. Though with your wonderful sister, you're both very refreshing.
Rather say your life has been rather boring then in recent times. May I ask why?
Well, I might as well tell you as we are old friends. My aunt would like to bestow upon me a sum, for which of course I must be grateful. However, it is not a gift but a dowry, and so I must find a suitor with whom to share it, and the process is extremely dull indeed. Seems like the world is filled with wonderful people, but as soon as you are searching for one to connect yourself with, suddenly they are all but parasites.
So the truth of the world laid bare to you from the poor process of matrimony.
And then I think that is when Mary enters. She is dressed extravagantly. She has taken the fall theme to a T. Her dress is like a flowing cascade of fall colours, with sort of a trimming of silver. It is not that it is distasteful, although she's clearly overdressed, but it is also that it is extremely expensive. She has the look of someone who, having arrived, is prepared to have the room look at her. And Milena looks over and says, "New money," and they're all like that, my dear.
I find them rather refreshing. I'm sorry, but as you suggested, I am currently working at the cult estate, and it would not do for me to...
Oh gosh, don't tell me that is one of your charges.
No, that is their firstborn, Miss Mary Colt. If you would excuse me. Hester bows deeply, but as she turns around, rolls her eyes and makes a beeline for Mary. Miss Colt, this is rather a humble dance for you to be appearing in.
Now, I hear from Cassandra you are very strict, but surely you cannot deny me a little fun.
I suppose you're right. This is a much better setting for us to be able to converse freely than usual. Thank you.
Converse freely. She sort of like swings around, like she's continuing to walk, and she's turning around to like create a split second of privacy between you two. Hester, there's more eyes watching you here than the servants gawking in our estate. Unless you would like to take this. And she gestures through the door out into the garden, the dark, quiet garden.
I've just had a quite lively dance. It would be nice to get some fresh, cool air.
You go ahead. I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Hester looks confused, but complies. I will see you in about a moment.
And then I think, like, we get the perspective of, like, Hester looking in from the garden. We see Mary dealing with being the center of attention. Mm-hmm. She couldn't just walk in and walk out the door. She doesn't take the exit that Hester used, but walks out through the other side of the hall and then turns around. Finally, a moment, darling.
I think if you let me, I would take your hand.
Yes, Mary's already has her hand out to be taken.
I hold your gloved hand and I say, "You look wonderful. And the dress does match your hair. It is a bit much."
Well, what's the point of showing up if you don't make an impression?
True. Mary, I think this is a time as any. I cannot hold it in any longer. This autumn will soon turn to winter, and winter... I would not want this winter to be another winter of discontentment for me. I think it's time we make good on our promises to each other. We waited long enough. Let's announce. Let's pause there for a moment, and because I think that as Hester lays this all out, it's probably a pivotal moment in Hester's life. During this game, your character may experience defining moments that change the course of their lives irrevocably. In this expansion, those moments are handled through pivotal moments and changing fortunes. At any point during the novel chapter phase or epistolary phases, any player may declare a pivotal moment when something is about to happen, like in this case, or has happened to their major character that is going to significantly change their character's future. While there is no limit on how many of these pivotal moments a player can declare, usually they will have 1 or 2 moments per cycle. So in this play example, I think that Hester is going to have a very pivotal moment now, as she's just laid out to Mary, basically, that they will announce. And however Mary answers this question is going to be significant to Hester's future. Then we continue to play out the rest of the scene. After that scene ends, we'll write a changing fortune on the public information sheet, but I will go through that a bit more in detail after the scene ends, and we'll just continue with the scene for now.
Jumping back into the scene, I think Mary is quiet for quite some time. You know I have much, but it is not my own. If we announce now, what are we to do? Now, if you give me a few more years to really progress my way in my father's company,
Mary,
I'll be indispensable.
you're his daughter. He would not cut you off. And he likes me. I sense that you've been using your work as an excuse. Do you not want to continue with this?
I'm going to take my cue from the tone here.
Yeah, good.
And I think she's going to say, are you really so naive, Hester? I know your family is in tatters, but I don't intend to do that to my own. To be good to one's tutor is one thing, but to think my father would consent to you marrying me without so much as a raise of the eyebrow, you're quite wrong. Our name is our company, and our company is our name. It is cult. That is what my father cares for. That is the true precious child of my father's heart.
I'm sorry then. This is clearly been a youthful misstep on both our parts.
Why are you so impatient?
Why are you so afraid?
I'm not afraid of anything. I'm merely conscious of the gaps between our standing.
Well then, and then I think Hester does like a very elaborate curtsy. I hope you have a fine evening, m'lady, and sweeps off.
Yeah, and I think Mary calls after you, Hester!
After the scene ends, we will be writing a Changing Fortunes on the public information sheet under the Rumor and Scandal section. A changing fortune is a future direction your character's life might take as a result of the pivotal moment that has occurred. It can be something that happens to your character or something that your character does in the future. So in this example, based on the conversation that Mary and Hester has just had, that pivotal moment, I'll be writing a Changing Fortune on the Rumor and Scandal sheet. So in this example, I think that based on how that conversation inflamed the tensions between the two, I will probably go with the Changing Fortune that Hester and Mary's engagement will fall apart. Once established, a Changing Fortune is treated in the same manner as a regular rumor. This means they can turn into spread rumors or fade with time. As the game progresses, you may decide if your character's changing fortune become realities, scandalous rumors, or just forgotten possibilities. Lastly, for noting down a changing fortune, you will add 1 fortune point to your character's count on the public information sheet. Fortune points represent the forces of change in your character's world. You will spend these points in the upkeep phase to reflect your character's changing circumstances and the people who move in and out of their lives. We'll spend more time talking about how to spend your fortune points when we reach the upkeep phase. For now, we will move on to the reputation phase.
Looking at my family background, I don't feel like I gained a positive or negative tag.
I think I'm going to gain a negative tag for pushing Mary so hard on that point. Because that was my desire, but I think it contravened the caringness that you should extend in that circumstance, and maybe that's why I will take the negative reputation tag impatient, which is exactly what I was accused of being, and I think that's true. So now we'll move on to the rumor and scandal phase. As a reminder, we have already the changing fortunes there, and it can be spread as a rumor would or could, or it could fade with time. For your turn, did you want to create or spread a rumor?
I think I'm going to go ahead and spread your changing fortune.
So for my turn, I think I will create a rumor. I think I will create the rumor that Captain Ander is thinking of retiring to a different life that would take him less far afield, closer to home. And so I get a double turn. Business is tough for the Colts at the moment. There's a new competitor, and Colts business is stalling, I guess. Not growing as quickly as it used to.
Well, you've had to do all the hard work here. But I'm more interested in Captain Anders retiring, personally, as being the rumor that is going around. So I'm going to go ahead and spread that one.
Awesome. So each had 2 goes, and that ends the rumor and scandal phase. So we'll be moving on to the Epistolary Phase. In addition to writing a letter, there are new options for this phase, which allows characters to express their thoughts and feelings in other ways, including writing a journal entry, describing a dream or nightmare that they've had, or having a weather interlude. While the first two are self-explanatory, weather interludes are a new addition to this expansion. These are small scenes, vignettes, and monologues that help players explore the characters' inner worlds. As well as being an option in Epistolary, weather interludes may be initiated during the passage of time phase, which we will be getting to later in the cycle of play.
I'm going to jump in and start if that's okay with you. And I have a letter from Rosemary to Milena. Dearest M, we did have fun at that party, didn't we? It is ghastly to hear about the parade of suitors that has been darkening your door. If it is not too presumptuous for me to say so, do consider my sister. I know you do not know her well now, but there was a time we all knew each other very well, and I think if you were looking for someone to trust in this world, I would trust her more even than I trust myself. If this suggestion does not please you, then kindly forget it. But I think it will make us all the happier. P.S. Sending little lemon creams should make your suffering a little more bearable.
I think I'm going to do a weather interlude. I'm going to choose the option for Overcast, which is a broody or contemplative vignette, or monologue, but in this case I'll choose vignette, about a difficult question. Hester being summoned to William Colt's office. William is looking uncharacteristically concerned, and we only almost hear one line bubbled through. I've heard the rumors and I've seen it myself. You and my daughter have had a falling out of sorts. I'm concerned, Hester. Would you rather me write you a letter of recommendation elsewhere? We see Hester's face, brows furrow, knit together, and she looks afraid because both options are bad in her eyes.
Yeah.
Her eyes flick over. Outside, it is overcast, it is blank, and it is grey, and there is no differentiation, no matter which way you look. And so we see Hester looking over back at Mr. William Colt and saying, "Please, sir, if it would please you, give me several days to think about it."
I think for my second turn, I'm going to do Rosemary's journal entry. I think Rosemary's journal is a series of unwritten letters to her mother, who is currently in prison. On this day, you have 5 years yet to serve, and would it not be a novel thing to imagine myself outside the gates, to collect 2 lone wanderers with nothing in the world, and to attempt to piece together a reputation broken like a dropped glass into 1,000 tiny shards. I'm not yet so capable a glassmith, but every day I am in training. For myself, my heart is strong. There has been so much poured into it. The walls have merely thickened to hold all of the flowing feelings, but for my sister, no, for all she speaks brashly. Stay strong, mother. 5 years is not that long, is it?
For the last epistolary, I will pick a dream or nightmare that Hester is having. She is in an endless corridor that looks a little bit like her childhood home, and people she loves continue to walk into the rooms, and when she tries to follow them, she opens the door to find it empty, and then she opens another one to find it dusty and full of cobwebs, and she catches a fleeting sight of Mary, and she chases her down and opens a door to absolutely unused, empty, as though like the way it looked on the day that they sold the estate. And so in this state of panic, Hester looks for the door to the garden outside to get any hint of fresh air and release. But when she opens that door, it just opens up into the cult estate. And yet again, it is another maze of doors leading to empty rooms. Hester slams open the door that would lead outside of the cult estate and ends up waking up in a sweat in her bedroom. So the next 2 phases that are going to happen in the cycle of play is the novel chapter and reputation phases again. For brevity's sake, we will be doing those off camera and summarizing what happens to you, and then after that we'll be on to the passage of time phase. So, see you in the flip side. So in our novel chapter, we had a series of visitations. We started off with Hester's scene, which was at the cult estate, inviting her sister Rosemary over to discuss with her in the garden about like what she should do, whether she should quit this job and get a new posting far, far away. And she came clean with her secret relationship with Mary and how much it hurt her every single day seeing Mary there, but knowing that the connection is now severed.
Rosemary thought that the engagement was a ticking time bomb, to use an anachronism, and that it was better it had ended. But she couldn't stand to see her sister go to an appointment far away, so she kind of said, come live with me in Anna for a bit, we'll sort it out later.
And Hester was like, okay. And felt very much like a younger sibling. The end of that scene was Mary coming in a little bit later and Rosemary having a bit of a go at Mary.
The scene that I had was Ander confronting Rosemary about Melina, to which plausible deniability Rosemary said to him, you've got it all wrong. Melina is about to propose to my sister.
And that's where we ended the novel chapter. So then that brings us to the passage of time phase of the game, which is a whole new section of the game. And before we actually launch into the very first passage of time, we will both be making an inner conflict for our characters.
Mine is going to be position versus freedom. And I think position encompasses all those things that Rosemary wants to restore about her family, their status in society, their comfortable way of living. Freedom expresses Rosemary's desire to choose the way she lives her own life that has been continually eroded by all of the choices she has made to secure her family's position so far.
Oh, that's good. My one is going to be independence versus familial attachment, her actual family attachment, and also people she wants to make her family through marriage. So now that we've established those, we will launch into our first passage of time. Passage of time phase explores what happens to characters during the passing years. The first thing that we have to do is to decide how much time will pass. How many years do you want to pass in this passage of time phase?
I think we should go with 5 years. The reason being
parents?
that exactly in the first novel chapter of the next cycle, our parents will be
That's cool.
out of jail.
Then the next thing we will be doing is we each have 2 turns. And on our turns, we will be initiating either a scene or a vignette. We have to do one of each from a few options. So the options are, we could either have a weather interlude, we can have a scene or vignette about a rumor coming true. We can have a scene or vignette about our characters' inner conflicts, with which we have just established. And then we can also pay a resolve token to have a scene or vignette about something else of your own choosing. So, that said, let's jump into this passage of time where 5 years will be passing.
So, big question that I need to know what my scene might be, or vignette. Melina, can I spend a resolve token for her to propose to Hester?
Yes, I will take that.
What's Hester going to say?
I think it'd be interesting if she says yes. So, yeah.
Okay. Here is my pitch for the scene, and it will mean you taking over the connection that I was playing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe only a few days after Melina and Hester announce their engagement, Mary hears this, and she comes to visit Hester to tell her that she talked to her father and everything is going to be fine. But she is intercepted by Rosemary.
And I'll play Mary for this scene.
And actually, I would like to offer this resolve token to Hester for Rosemary to intercept Mary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mary not to get to speak
take
to
that.
her.
That's so cool. Mary's already flying up the stairs and knocking on the door to be let in, to be taken up to see Hester.
Mm-hmm. And I think the servants take Mary up to the sitting room, and instead of Hester, who she was expecting to see, it's Rosemary that enters.
Sorry, I wasn't quite expecting to see you. When will Hester be home?
May I ask what business you have with my sister?
Well, perhaps a different time might be suiting us both better.
Far be it for me to presume. You are aware of my sister's engagement.
I am, as I'm sure you are aware of our previous engagement.
Unlike you, Miss Colt, this engagement has been formally announced.
Well, perhaps Hester will change her mind.
Miss Colt, if you care at all for my sister, you will not set foot in this household again. Hester has finally found her happiness. She does not need you to ruin it at the last moment on some selfish whim. I'm well aware you have money, Miss Colt. I'm well aware you are used to doing what you wish. But if you choose to pursue your selfishness, in this case, you will merely destroy everything my sister has built for herself. Do you wish to be the architect of that?
So then Hester is happy.
Yes. Somebody has seen her worth and potential.
I think Mary glares at you and says, do not play those games with me. I have worked hard to secure this position in the company to make this possible at this stage. So be clear that I am doing this for Hester. I will not hear to it that I did not love her enough.
You are too late, Miss Colt. It is as simple as that. I think we've said all we need to say.
That was too late. That is on me. So be it. And Mary turns and leaves. I want to go down the road of this 5 years a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we are about 3 years down the track. And I think I'm going to have a scene about a rumor coming true. And I'm going to suggest that it's Captain Ander has actually retired. Ander is home for like the first summer, for the whole of the summer. And Hester and Melina are coming to visit.
I think that the thing that tipped Ander over into retirement was the birth of his second child.
I love it.
So there are
2 bubbers.
2 screaming children, yes. 2-year-old and a newborn. They've all been cooing over this newborn. But at this point, this newborn needs to sleep. The nurse has taken the child to go to bed. I think Rosemary is making a joke like, yes, it is a shame she has to sleep sometime. Well, it is the better for us, isn't it, my dear? But of course, she doesn't choose well. She doesn't know when we're in company quite yet.
And Hester says, she's the one who's been cooing the most, mind you. Yeah, we probably tired the poor bubs up. You do look somewhat weary yourself, sister, but it's good to have Ander home.
Rosemary leans over and pats Ander's arm.
He's being very characteristically quiet in these conversations, letting other people carry the conversation on himself.
Yes. But tell me of you.
Well, we've just been traveling for the past few months, and Melina's like, yes, of course, and pulls out some sort of maybe like a nice silk scarf that they bought. We've got these for you. And Melina probably leans over and pops the scarf on you.
I think Rosemary leans forward for her to do so. And then her eyes linger on Melina's eyes for like probably a moment too long.
And Hester totally misses it because she's looking over at the 2-year-old and being like, no, and picking them up. No, put that down. Don't put that in your mouth.
When Hester rushes over to Henry, who's sort of like in a patch of grass a bit further away, Rosemary excuses herself and is like, I must aid my sister, though I know she is capable, yet she does not know Henry's wily ways.
Hester is very cut and dry with children. She treats a 14-year-old the same as a 2-year-old.
You must indulge him a little more, my dear.
Nope,
He's
the grass.
only 2.
She bounces Henry up and down a little bit, and then she like slings him over one shoulder, looks over at her sister and says, how are you?
We haven't had much time to talk, have we?
Well, life is busy.
Life seems so busy, and yet there is so much stillness between the moments of busyness. I scarce know what to do with it. I've been thinking a lot about mother and father. It's not so far away now.
You can tell that Hester doesn't want to delve into that because she deflects by being like, oh, Henry, stop it.
I know you don't like to think about it, Hester. How are you and Melina? Everything well? Your travels sound delightful.
Yes, we're not quite sure yet where we will settle.
Oh, of course it shall be here. I heard the estate up the road is for let.
Well, let's not be too hasty. For I fear we'll hear the cries of young Henry and the new little bubs.
Oh, but don't go far, Hester. I couldn't bear it. Not with everything that's about to happen. We've always had each other, haven't we?
I will tell Melina so. If it was up to me, we would be up the road.
I'll tell her so myself. Melina, for one, has always wisely listened to me, unlike you.
Well, I wouldn't count on it. It is Melina who is unsure about living so close. Maybe that's like a resolve token. It's a compelling.
To Melina.
But she does not want to live too close to you.
Yeah, I think
because she still loves you.
Did you want a little moment in the scene where we kind of established that? I think it's as, goodbye, take presents, and, hug the children, and that all this commotion is going on. And even Anders has gotten up to do various things and tie various things and lift things and hold children. Rosemary touches Melena's arm and says, "You've seen me stay up the road."
I have, but I don't think it's a great idea. It's wonderful to see you from time to time. But there's too much of a good thing sometimes,
I think an expression of confusion and sadness crosses Rosemary's face. And I think as Melena is sort of swallowed up in the commotion, the last thing that Rosemary manages to say to her is, "Don't take her away from me."
Oh, nice.
For my vignette, I think I'm going to have a weather interlude, and it is going to be day, the simple joys or the busyness of life. Rosemary is really aware that her parents are going to be coming out of jail in a couple of years, and she doesn't know how that's going to change her life, but she suspects not in a good way. And so she is trying to create the pretense of stability and normality as much as she possibly can. I think this vignette is essentially her trying on various things to see whether they suit her. She spends time with the children in the garden. She spends time with the children in the library. She has a soiree. She has a tea party. She's over at Hester and Melena's estate all the time. With the children, without the children, with presents, without presents. She goes for short walks with Ander. She goes for long walks without Ander. She's just trying to live an extremely normal life. And I think we see the days and months sort of flashing forward with little changing except the children growing older.
So for my vignette, I think it'll just be a monologue of Dawn. New Hope. It's right at the end of that 5 years. Rosemary and Hester's parents are finally coming home. They are being received at the Tilneys, and Hester has gotten up early to head over to the Tilney estate. Hester sees Rosemary out on the courtyard early in the morning, and they don't really talk, but they stand next to each other and look down the road at the sun coming up. And I think the monologue there is, life brings so many turns, surprises. It takes up all of one's energy just to run to the next thing with a full and bursting heart. And regrets always do try to chase us down, but if we run hard enough at the things we want, we can stave them off and outrun them. And that's the end of that monologue, the passage of time. The Upkeep Phase includes 5 new steps to reflect the effects of the passage of time on the game. Yeah. So the first step is to adjust all of the character ages up by 5. Then we will be replacing desires, which is an optional step. But I will be replacing my Marry Your Secret Fiancé.
Yes, I need to replace my immediate desire as well.
Okay, so we would go ahead and do that. Then we will spend our fortune points. Yes, so I've got 1 and you've got 1 also.
Would you like to spend them both to create our parents?
Yes. So to delve a little bit more into spending your fortune points, players can spend fortune points to take the story in new directions and reflect how their major character has changed over time. You can spend any number of your fortune points 1 for 1 to change your character role, change your family background, create a new connection, change a connection's fortune, and establish a relationship. I could spend 1 for one of our parents. You can spend 1 fortune point for another parent.
Yes, I feel like I should spend mine on Mom since I wrote to her in my journal all those years ago.
After we've spent our fortune points, we will be removing outdated connections that no longer make sense for the story.
I think William might be the only one.
I think
we
so.
Don't need anymore.
Will. So, the resolve tokens would go back. We'll get rid of William. And then we will be allocating the new connections that we've made to the players.
Yes.
To play. Then after that, you'll be continuing on with Upkeep as usual, as detailed in the base game. So that brings us to the end of our Emma Forget-Me-Not playthrough and rules explanation. We've gone through the changes regarding the passage of time phase, pivotal moments and changing fortunes, and some of the weather interludes and new options around that. So I hope you've enjoyed our video today. Thank you and see you next time.